So just to be way too honest about today's video, which is my launch review of NVIDIA's new RTX 3070 Ti, I'm keeping my expectations low. My video is good, I think. I have 8 GPUs in my comparison charts and a nice set of games tested. I just kind of dread GPU launches these days, if I may vent for a moment. They take 2 to 3 times as long to produce as other videos, and while that time was usually justified in the past because enthusiastic PC builders still had some enthusiasm for building and would actually watch, in 2021 the GPU shortage continues to smother the hopes of even the most diehard gamer. And my GPU review video metrics, to be perfectly honest, are now below average compared to my other content. But you know what? Screw it! Today I'm just gonna ignore all that and just do a GPU review. Watch it or don't, I don't care. That's all. Let's go. Excellent! Today's video is brought to you by Micro Center, one of my favorite places to buy PC parts, whether it's online or at one of their 25 retail stores in the US. They have consistently competitive prices and an excellent selection of PC hardware and other tech goodies, as well as the custom PC builder on the Micro Center website. Use it to spec out your rig and it will show you parts in stock at your nearest store while ensuring compatibility with your selections. Then you can pick up or have their pros assemble it for you. So click the sponsor link in the description and don't forget to sign up for the free in-store gift. Alright, so I did make timestamps. You can use those to jump ahead in the video if you're just here for the benchmark numbers. I'm quickly going to go over this Founders Edition RTX 3070 Ti and my testing setup. And while this card looks familiar, it is not the exact same design as the RTX 3070 or the RTX 3080. While it is still a 2-slot card, it is bigger, measuring 10.5 inches long, about an inch longer than the 3070, and about 3/4 of an inch shorter than the 3080. The 2 axial fans are on either side of the card, a similar layout to the 3080's cooler, so the backplate side looks a little bit more like the 3080, and the front looks more like a larger 3070. I appreciate that NVIDIA went with a new design that still has the aesthetic appeal of the rest of the cards in the 30 series family, as the larger size did seem to help keep temperatures a little bit more reasonable and, more importantly, fan speeds in check. Unfortunately, there's still the poorly placed special connector dongle for PCIe power though, and the GeForce RTX logo is not backlit. Apparently you need a -80 card or better for that. The GPU itself is another variant of the Ampere GA104, the GA104-400-A1 to be specific, built with Samsung's 8nm lithography and sporting 6,144 CUDA cores, only 4.3% more than the 3070 non-Ti and almost 30% fewer than the 8,704 that the standard 3080 has. The 3070 Ti also has 48 SM units and ships with 8 GB of GDDR6X VRAM with a data rate of 19 gigabits per second. Relevant stats for all the cards tested today are here if you want to pause to compare them, and the farcical launch prices are included too in case you're feeling a bit too happy today and you want to compare those to street prices. Moving on to my test setup. All tests were run on this test system with a Gigabyte Aorus Master X570 motherboard, a Ryzen 9 5900X 12-core CPU running with Auto OC and PBO enabled, cooled by an NZXT Kraken X62 280mm all-in-one CPU cooler. Memory is a 32GB G.Skill Trident Z Neo DDR4 3600 CAS latency 16 kit, meaning the RAM and Infinity Fabric are both running at 1800 MHz, and a correction to my 3080 Ti video, I initially listed the memory speed wrong there. It's 3600 speed, not 3800. And we're on the latest Windows 10 21H1 version with game mode on and the Ryzen high performance power plan enabled. Again, here are stats for the rest of the system if you want to take a closer look. Also note that I've included the RX 6800 and 6800 XT from AMD's Radeon lineup, and in the land of make-believe that I'm living in today, these cards cost $580 and $650 respectively, crowding the 3070 Ti in a bit since it's supposed to go for $600. Let's move on to performance though, and here are the actual clock speeds I was seeing out of the cards while in use. Note that the base and boost clocks for modern GPUs can often be ignored as the real-world measurements always show them running at higher frequencies. All the Founders Edition cards seem to like to run at 1850 to 1900 MHz for the most part, settling into 1875 or 1860 as temperatures increased during longer test runs. Interestingly, even though their base stats vary, the 3070 and 3070 Ti both hit similar frequencies under load, meaning the performance uplift for the Ti is more the result of the higher core count and increased memory throughput than the higher clock speeds. Let's dive into some benchmark numbers next. 3D Mark Time Spy Extreme is a synthetic benchmark from 3D Mark, their DirectX 12 test, and here the 3070's graphics score was about 7.5% slower than the 3070 Ti. So the Ti is demonstrably faster, but I think the RTX 3080 is still the card to beat, if you have access to an alternate dimension where GPU manufacturers are horsewhipped if they ever let stock run short. It is is more than 20% faster for only a $100 price increase. 3D Mark Port Royal is my other synthetic benchmark from 3D Mark. It's a ray tracing focused test, and as expected, AMD still has some catch up to do in this area, although the 6800 XT does manage to edge out the 3070 Ti by about 4.2%. Again though, the RTX 3080, with a 30% lead over the 3070 Ti, seems to indicate that the new card is more of a slightly faster 3070 than a slightly less fast 3080. Moving on to real-world games, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is a newer addition to my benchmark suite, a very pretty DirectX 11 game that lets you fly anywhere in the world with a focus on detail and draw distance, which means relatively low frame rates. At 1080, the 3070 Ti is at the bottom of this roundup, with the 6800 and 6900 XT marginally outperforming it by 2 and 3%, but the higher-end 30 series GPUs are all about 20% faster. At 1440p, the lineup normalizes as we move away from CPU limitations, and the 3070 Ti beats the 3070 by 7.5% and the 6800 by 1.9%. The 6900 XT still had a hard time at this resolution, and the 3090 came out on top. At 4K, the RX 6800 is only 2.5% behind the 3070 Ti, while the 6800 XT is 13.5% ahead. The 3080 is once again faster by 15.7% though, while the 3070 is 8.2% slower. Next up is Resident Evil Village, and my benchmark run begins with the first descent down into the village itself. The Radeon GPUs all performed well with this game, with the 6800 about 14 to 15% faster than the 3070 Ti at all resolutions, and the 6800 XT and 6900 XT anywhere from 30 to 50% ahead. At 1080, the 3070 Ti managed a rare win over the 3080, but I would attribute that to CPU limitations at this resolution. At 1440p, the Radeon cards are 15, 41, and 52% ahead of the 3070 Ti, and the RTX 3080 is 15% faster, while the 3070 non-Ti is 8.6% slower. And at 4K, the 6900 XT completes its sweep of the Resident Evil benchmark category, while compared to the 3070 Ti, the 3080 is again 23% faster, while the 3070 is 8.6% slower. GTA 5 is a game that needs no introduction at this point. At 1080, we are completely capped by the game engine's 187.5 FPS limit, which pretty much every card in this roundup hits, so not much variance in the results. Even at 1440p, the high-end cards still manage to get frame rate capped, but note that the Nvidia cards are suffering from fewer hitches and stutters in this test, as reflected in the 1% low numbers. And at 4K, all cards except the 3070 are above 100 FPS, with the 3080 sitting about 15% ahead of the 3070 Ti, and the 6800 XT edging it out by 1.5%. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is also a DirectX 12 title, and at 1080, the 3070 Ti manages to score another win over the 3070 and the 3080, and even the 3090, but not the 3080 Ti, showing why pure GPU performance comparisons are usually more appropriate at higher resolutions where CPU limitations aren't as much of a factor. At 1440p, the Radeon cards all have strong showings versus their Nvidia counterparts, although again, the 3090 didn't quite live up to expectations. Versus the 3070 Ti, the 3070 is 8.7% slower here, and the 3080 is 12.3% faster. At 4K, the Nvidia battle is most pronounced, with the 3070 coming in 11% slower versus the 3070 Ti, and the 3080 being 21.5% faster. Doom Eternal is my only Vulkan title, known for its fast-paced gameplay and almost comical levels of demonic violence and gore. At 1080, the Radeons take another win, being 9, 20, and 35% faster than the 3070 Ti, and the 3080 again topped it by more than 15%. At 1440, the 3070 is playing catch-up again, down by 9.1%, while the remaining cards all managed to beat out the 3070 Ti. Even the 6800 is up by 4.1%. And at 4K, the 3090 establishes dominance once again, managing a 43.3% win over the 3070 Ti, with the 3070 non-Ti coming in 10% slower and the 3080 coming in 20% faster, in a continuation of that trend. Cyberpunk 2077 is running with the Ultra Graphics preset, and at 1080p, the 3070 Ti only manages to outperform the 3070 non-Ti, which is 7.5% slower, while the RTX 3080 is 15.3% faster. The RX 6800 also wins by a more modest 1.5% margin in this test. At 1440, the RX 6800 increases its lead to about 4%, and the RTX 3080 is still sitting 19.2% out in front, a sizable bump for the $100 more expensive card. And at 4K, the 3080 Ti and 3090 take a nice lead over the 6900 XT, while the 3070 is once again slower than the 3070 Ti by only 5.6%. Dirt 5 is last. It's a racing game, and it's a fun racing game. We're running the ultra high preset with resolution scaling turned off, and at 1080 the cards all fall in line in an expected way based on all the previous results, with the RX 6800 edging out the 3070 Ti by 2.7%, the 3070 being 8.4% slower, and the 3080 being 20.3% faster. At the higher 1440 resolution, the 6800 falls behind the 3070 Ti by 5.4%, but the 6800 XT is still up by 26%. And finally, at 4K, the 3070 Ti is once again behind the 3080 by almost 20%, while the 3070 non-Ti is down by 8%. So there are my gaming comparisons, but raw performance is only one part of the story. Let's take a look at temperatures and power draw. Here are the peak temperatures recorded for each card across all tests. Note that GPU temps are getting more specific, and there's both an average temperature and a hotspot temperature listed for NVIDIA cards and Radeon cards in hardware info these days. The max temp for the 3070 Ti was 82.8 degrees Celsius, with a hotspot temp of 94.6. While those values are higher than what I recorded for the 3080 Ti last week, which uses the RTX 3080 cooler, which I think might be a little bit on the small side, I do not think that they had to go with the same aggressive fan curve on this card, as noise levels were not as bad for the 3070 Ti. And the GPU memory junction temperature, which hit 108 degrees Celsius on the 3080 Ti, was also much more reasonable and only got into the low 90s with this card. Here are my power draw numbers next, and both at peak and on average, the 3070 Ti struck a nice balance between the 3070 and 3080, pulling 421 watts on average for the whole system. You can also note here that the Radeon cards draw less power overall, which is to be expected as they have lower board power ratings versus the NVIDIA cards. Okay, we're gonna look at cumulative benchmark numbers next, but before I do that, I'm gonna try to troll anyone who jumped straight to this point in the video and skipped everything else. Bear with me for just one moment, guys. And those are my instructions for how you could obtain one of these graphics cards for half off of the MSRP. Let's move into the overall benchmark numbers next though, evenly weighted by game, using the RTX 3070 Ti as the 100% baseline. Please remember that some of these tests at 1920 by 1080 were CPU limited or game engine frame rate limited, which is why there's more of a performance difference at 1440 and 4K. The RX 6800 outperforms the 3070 Ti by a small margin at all resolutions while costing less money. And the 6800 XT is about 15 to 20% faster for only $50 more. That's of course if your consciousness resides in that dream-filled land between sleep and awake where Tinkerbell lives and GPU stock is available. If you're comparing the 3070 Ti to other NVIDIA cards, at 1080, 1440, and 4K, the RTX 3080 is 8, 12.8, and 20.3% faster respectively, while the RTX 3070 is 4.5, 7.3, and 8.7% slower. So you get more for spending that extra $100 if you're going from a $600 3070 Ti to a $700 3080 versus upgrading from a $500 3070 to the 3070 Ti. A purchase decision that you're probably putting a lot of thought into, especially since this is all just a psychedelic fever dream. So if it wasn't obvious in the intro, I am torn because the pricing and availability of all graphics cards just sucks right now, so listed retail prices can't be taken seriously. There have been GPU launches in the past 6 months that I have practically ignored because of that, but I do still want to test graphics cards or other new hardware since I kind of enjoy it, and that's kind of what my YouTube channel is supposed to be about, and I want to be able to provide you guys with good buying advice. I'm just frustrated with the continuing shortage, as I imagine many of you are too, but hopefully now you guys have a better idea of how these cards stack up. And if prices return to normal sometime soon, this video might even have real-world application. That is all for this one though, so closing reminder to check out my store at paulshardware.net for merch, shirts, pint glasses, and other thumbscrew related items. And of course, like this video if you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel if you really enjoyed it. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.